In this short video, I want to introduce some insights from a paper I co-authored with Julian Bass that looks at how African universities are reforming their computing curricula and what actually happens when those reforms hit day-to-day realities. We focused on Ethiopia, but the lessons travel widely across development contexts. Across Africa, ICT use is accelerating, yet the skills pipeline hasn't kept pace and many universities are still teaching computing degrees designed some years ago. In our paper, we look at the specific example of the Ethiopian government undertaking a major national curriculum change, moving from 3-year programs that still showed their 1980s roots to 4-year IEEE ACM-inspired degrees. Their intention was clear: produce graduates with stronger theory and with better practical skills that were more aligned with employer needs. To understand how this played out, we used the design reality gap model, which I've applied in many ICT for D settings. Its idea is simple. Success depends on the match between what a reform design assumes or requires and what the implementing institutions can actually support in reality. We use the optimism framework as a variant on the typical ITPOSMO framework for design reality gap analysis, assessing gaps along each of 8 dimensions of objectives, processes, technology, information management systems, investment, staffing and skills, and the wider context or milieu. We found genuine progress along some dimensions based on smaller gaps between design and reality. Universities did adopt new programs with clearer learning outcomes. Many introduced more relevant theory, more coherent sequencing of courses, and better differentiation between computer science, information systems, and information technology. Some newer universities restructured departments to reflect the new curriculum, and sector-wide business process reforms helped unblock some administrative obstacles. The 2 largest design reality gaps identified the 2 largest challenges, which were in technology and in staffing. On technology, the new curriculum demanded specialist computing labs for networking, operating systems, embedded systems that simply did not exist. So continuous assessment was introduced, but lab-based assignments often got replaced by quizzes because class sizes and infrastructure made practical work difficult. On staffing, many instructors were recent graduates themselves who had not had the chance to adequately develop their own skills. Underlying all this was something deeper. Almost all the gaps we identified ultimately trace back to the same source: a curriculum designed for a Western, well-resourced higher education context, transplanted into a very different reality. Now, that's not a reason not to update curricula, but it is a reason to think carefully about whether African and other Global South universities should simply adopt international frameworks or adapt them, or indeed develop their own. Our practical recommendations follow from where the gaps were identified, and in the time since we wrote our paper, a number of these have indeed happened. Investment needed to be specifically tied to curriculum infrastructure requirements, not just general university budgets. Masters provision needed urgent expansion alongside short courses for serving instructors. Governments and universities, we recommend, should use a framework like Optimism to track implementation progress systematically. And curriculum groups can surface the implicit assumptions in international frameworks before adopting them. Ethiopia is one case, and it has its specificities, but the design reality gap model is transferable. Any African university, indeed any Global South university, any Ministry of Education grappling with computing curriculum reform can use this framework to identify where their own gaps are before they become crises. That is the contribution that we're most pleased with. Not just the Ethiopian findings, but a systematic tool for doing this kind of evaluation anywhere. If you're working on computing education or higher education reform in the Global South or ICT for D, I hope these insights are helpful. If you'd like to know more, the full paper is open access. You can find it via the QR code or the web link shown, and thank you for watching.